Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Monday, June 26th, 2017. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. You were probably expecting to hear the dulcet tones of Dave Biddle. Dave has earned himself a vacation. He is gone for 2 weeks. I'll be holding down the fort this week. The BM5 is actually going to take a break next week, but I digress. I figured I'd start off my moonlighting here with the best in the business, Bill Kurelic, Dean of Ohio State Recruiting. Bill, how are you this fine Monday?
Oh, doing very well, Dan. Doing very well. How about yourself?
Fine, crisp, clear day here in the Gem City. And here's what we're going to do today. We are going to look into the mind of one William J. Kurelic via the crystal ball. So a lot of you have become fans or not so much of the crystal ball and understand what we do on 24/7 Sports. It's a way for experts to predict what's going to happen. For those of you who didn't know this and haven't taken a deep dive on the crystal balls, the insiders get points every time they make a prediction and are correct. They get points for accuracy, and they get points for when they put the prediction in. The earlier, the better. Now, they tally these and give you a total. For example, the number one crystal ball guy across the board is someone you may have heard of, Steve Wiltfong. Steve puts in a ton of crystal balls. If you look at the rankings, one William Kurelic is only ranked 80th. And for those of you who know Bill would not be comfortable ranked 80th in anything unless there's an extenuating circumstance, which I'm going to give you. Bill just sticks to Ohio State. Accuracy rating, Bill is numero uno. He is 100% on Buckeyes so far this year. So that's amazing. I also went back and looked at Bill's rankings over the last few years. Interestingly enough, Bill has not missed truly on a Buckeye in a couple of years, and the ones he has missed on, I say they're extenuating circumstances. Okay, so last year, for example, Bill put in 30 crystal balls. He got 26 of them accurate. He only had one really true miss, and it wasn't with a future Buckeye. It's with Bubba Bolden. Bill predicted Arizona State. Bubba picked USC. We know, hindsight's 2020, we know that Bubba didn't even know what he was going to pick until about 15 minutes before he chose, so we'll give Bill the mulligan on that. The other three Bill missed on technically were Todd Sibley, Bruce Judson, and Ty John Lindsay. However, he was accurate at one point. We've all heard those names. Those were Buckeye commitments who flipped elsewhere. So, one other statistic. Over the past few years, the player, Bill, that you have received the most crystal ball points on, who do you think it is of the last three recruiting classes? So it's a combination of being right and being early. Being right and being early. Who's number one?
My goodness. I am not sure.
The
I
answer?
really don't know, to be honest.
The answer is Nick Bosa, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I really wish there was another crystal ball in for another Bosa brother. Unfortunately, the parents didn't take care of us after Nick. Well, we would have a lot more points. So we're going to go down today now in inverse order of when Bill made the prediction of his current 2018 crystal ball predictions. Basically, most of these guys you should feel really good about. So I just told Bill this as I was doing the numbers. I had to do a double take because it was different than all the others. Jaxon Carmen, I'll just put it to you this way. Bill's 4 of the 5 existing crystal balls were made since March. One was made last April, and that is Jaxon Carmen, the number one offensive lineman in the country, at least the number one tackle out of Fairfield, Ohio. Bill, how do you feel about that? That's been quite a while for you. That's not your style to go that early.
Well, several factors there. First, I've known Jaxon a long time, and his family for that matter. Started talking to him, his mom, his dad, very, very early in the process, and there was not much doubt he was going to be a guy that Ohio State wanted. And I just felt from talking to them all very, very early that he was going to end up at Ohio State. Now, there has been perhaps continues to be the Clemson scare, perhaps, that he might end up there, and maybe he will. But I'm not changing my crystal ball on that one. I don't think Urban's going to miss on that one. He's too important, too much of a priority that I just don't think Urban's going to miss on that one. And I'm definitely sticking with Jaxon Carmen. I guess it's been 14 months ago that I crystal balled him, and not changing that one.
Yeah, that would shock me. Yeah, I can't even think of a scenario by which I can see that happening, which is awesome. Very lucky that he's an Ohio native. Some of that's just luck. When you have a big state school, sometimes the in-state talent's just that good, and it is in this case with Jaxon Carmen, who, by the way, we'll talk about an offensive lineman passing the look test. If they were going to do blindside 2, Jaxon Carmen could definitely be Michael Oher's cousin in the movie or something. He's a beast. The second one, and this is the one I think I'm going to have the most reticence about, Michael Harris, the linebacker out of Georgia. You did this one on March 18th. Was this your St. Patrick's Day hangover? Are you still buzzing, or what happened?
No, just that between talking to Michael, his coach, and those around him, as well as a couple other sources, I felt like he really wanted to be a Buckeye. And I went and checked on some things as far as caliber and ability to play at Ohio State. And everything I heard was, maybe he wasn't ranked as a top 2 or 3 linebacker in the country, but that he was of that caliber. I'm a little bit, if there was one I was going to change right now, that would probably be the one. I'm not ready to change it yet because he wants to be a Buckeye. There is no doubt in my mind that Michael Harris wants to be a Buckeye. Could he be a Buckeye? Yep, I think so. But with Ohio State having 2 linebackers in the class already, in Taraja Mitchell, of course, and Dallas Gant, they can be extremely selective because they only want 4 tops, maybe 3. They can be extremely selective on who gets that last linebacker slot. And Solomon Tuliapu is certainly very much in the mix. And I think if they could get him, the only way they would take 4 linebackers would be to get Pele Gaote flip. With the possibility of Sullivan taking the linebacker spot and all, I'm not sure that I'll be staying the whole way with Michael Harris as a Buckeye, but for now, I'm going to stay with it.
Interesting. The next one came on April the 23rd, and I think as we predicted, there was a rush of intrigue on this guy, and it's kind of died down. That's Micah Parsons, defensive end out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I still think that Micah's going to end up at Ohio State. There's a lot of intrigue, as you mentioned, Dan, visiting and his reinterest possibility in Penn State. But I'm not saying that can't happen, but it doesn't happen often where somebody decommits and then recommits and ends up at that school. I think that Micah is going to go through the process. He's not going to decide tomorrow, for instance. And in the end, I still am going to go with Ohio State as the destination for Micah Parsons.
Yeah, and he's all the stuff you read and kind of if you get a vibe, I have a very good feeling that Brenton Cox, Teron Vincent, Micah Parsons, and Tyreek Smith communicate and could be in the same room shortly. Got a couple recent ones here. I was going to say, yeah, not a bad group of. They'll be able to reunite 4 or 5 years from now when each one of them gets about a $3 or $4 million signing bonus at least. Let's talk about the 2 recent ones here. One you did just about a month ago, and that is one close to my heart, of course, LaChristian Blue Smith. I will say behind closed doors, I have been saying for the longest that I thought Blue would end up at Ohio State. There was the long positional discussion. Whatever happened, and we can discuss this, that seemed, and you can go over the details of what made Blue feel good with, and Ohio State feel good with him. There was definitely a change right about when you make this crystal ball flip. And I will say for those who think Blue is a tight end still, I would encourage them to get a look at him. He's going to end up starting his football season at about 200 pounds of, rippled steel. He's not a big, wide tight end. At best, H-back for those who see a hybrid. Your feeling on Blue, what changed it, and how you've gotten here?
Well, two words there. Urban Meyer. Urban talked to Blue and Lorenzo, his dad, and talked to them about coming up and having a meeting of the minds. And Blue and his dad headed up to Columbus, had a great meeting with Urban Meyer, and Urban just sat down with them and told them, this is how we see you. We don't see you as a tight end. We see you as a wide receiver with the potential to be some type of H-back if you get big enough. If you end up being 6'6" and 240 pounds or 230, you could be some type of H-back, create mismatches, a combination wide receiver H-back. But as you mentioned, it's not trending that way right now. It's trending, if anything, towards Blue Smith being a pure wide receiver in college. And again, I've seen him play in person. I've seen him in camp situations. He's not, as you mentioned, Dan, he's not a 240-pound tight end. He's not that at all. And he can create mismatches as a wide receiver with his size, his height. That discussion was very well received by Blue and his father. And at that point, once they got that all cleared up, I felt very comfortable picking Blue Smith to Ohio State.
I'd be shocked if Blue doesn't end up at Ohio State. I know there was talk of Kentucky for a while, but people in Ohio don't choose Kentucky unless Calipari's on the other end of the line. That's just the way it is. Sorry. By the way, Blue, for those who like athleticism, if he's not the best basketball player in the class of 2020 in Dayton, he's top 3 or 4. Not sure if he'll play hoops this year, but he's a tremendous athlete. He's no lumbering inline blocker. The last guy, another receiver. Can't say I was surprised to see this name come up there. I think of all the guys in the class that they've recruited, we've done less coverage. I don't mean you. I mean even me on the BM5 of a guy this highly touted that I thought to be a Buckeye. I don't know if that's because we took it for granted. That's Cameron Babb, the receiver out of St. Louis.
Well, in Cameron's case, he's not an easy guy to get a hold of, for one thing. You can get a hold of him at times, but not an easy guy. And which, a shameless plug for this coming weekend, I will be seeing Cameron in person at the opening, so we'll have some more information on him. Looking forward to that trip to Oregon and seeing Cameron and talking to him. We'll have more information, as I mentioned, but that's another one that I don't see myself changing. I think he's going to be a Buckeye, unless something knocks his socks off in another direction, which I don't expect to happen. I think right now he loves Ohio State, wants to be a Buckeye, and I think he will. That's the last one you mentioned. I guess we're going with the all 2018 class, and another wide receiver that I think is going to be a Buckeye eventually out of the 2019 class that I've crystal balled is Trey Knox from Tennessee. Just saw him recently at a high state camp. What a good-looking young man. Very good body, goes up and high points the ball well, catches it over smaller defensive backs. The only slight question mark is he didn't run a great 40 time, but other than that, just an outstanding 2019 talent that I believe wants to be a Buckeye, and I've crystal balled him to get an early look at 2019 to Ohio State.
So getting back to Babb for 1 second, if you were to compare Babb to a receiver we might all know, who would you compare him to?
That's a little bit of a tough one, but somebody a little recently, he reminds me a little bit of Austin Mack, the very highly recruited wide receiver out of Indiana that picked Ohio State. I guess that'd be the first guy that would come to mind. I think Cameron Babb's a little bit different, maybe slightly faster than Austin, but that'd be the guy I'd pick, I think, right now.
So there you have it, people. A window into the mind. Bill Kurelic. We still remain safe. Bill, you teased it. I want you to go into a little bit of detail here. you are headed out to the opening. Most of the people on this that have literally have gotten this far into this podcast obviously know what the opening is, but for those on maybe a maiden voyage on the BM5 here, explain to them what the opening is, what you'll be doing, who they'll get to hear about out there, etc.
It is a group of the finest prospects in the country. Tremendous group. And, looking at the group, there are teams out there that play 7-on-7. They divide these prospects into teams, 7-on-7 competition. Of course, there are some testing and drill work, too, and that type of thing. But it's a camp of the elite prospects in the country that have all earned the right to be out there by going and performing extremely well at extremely high level at the opening regionals across the country. For instance, I covered the one in Cleveland. But it will have the finest players in the country, and so many of them, this is going to be great for Bucknuts, are Ohio State commitments or targets. You look at the list, and there's probably in the vicinity of 40 guys that are Ohio State-related guys that are going to be at that opening that'll be covered here on Bucknuts. So it should be a great weekend, and into the following week, into the week after the 4th of July of Ohio State-related coverage from the opening.
We will be putting Bill Kurelic on a plane out to Nike headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon, where this event is held. This is going to be the best coverage we can possibly provide. There will be nothing like having Bill on site for us. We've never had the good fortune of having him out there for this, and the fact that we're going to get him out there for this one is very exciting. We appreciate you guys starting your week with us here on Bucknuts. Have a great one, Bucknutters.